is kind of, you know, in Intel, we're a very data-driven company, and all of you know the data. So I didn't want to stand up here and just tell you the data. I wanted to reflect on why there's this piece of data that for me is important with this issue. And I really started when I was talking to one of our very senior technical females inside of Intel who was very distressed with where her career was. And she told me this. She said, if I knew it was going to not get better but get worse, I would have never become an engineer. I should have took my dad's advice and become a doctor. And I thought about, well, that's STEM. Everybody says women don't do STEM. So then I began to look at STEM from the medical school perspective. And I began to look at, well, why don't they have conferences about more women becoming doctors? And why aren't we putting a whole lot of money and strategies about women becoming doctors? And then it began to take me through how long it's taken for that industry to reach parity. And you think that it was 1765 when the first medical school opened in this country. So just, I mean, you know, my kids tell me I'm looking older, but I'm not that old. But think about that. That was the first time. And it wasn't for 80 years until they allowed the first woman to come into medical schools. So now we're at 80 years. Okay, Intel started in 1968. So I don't want to go back and tell our CEO we have another, 30 years to get there. But so you think about that, and you think about in 2013, so first medical school, 1765. 2013 was the first year, actually it was 2003, was the first year where women's applications to medical schools outnumbered men's. Now what happened was that their actual enrollment dropped, I think it was like 52%, their actual enrollment dropped to 49%. But think about that. And we basically right now are at parity in that field. And by 2025, roughly, we will be at full parity of females in medical school teaching facilities. So the reason why I say that is you can look at, so is it just we need more time? Is it that it's clear what you do when you're a doctor that really hasn't changed all that much? Engineering changes through Moore's Law every 18 months. We drive that. That's what our company does. So I began to think about if you put that in the context of race and gender and class in this country, and you think about when women got the right to vote, the Civil Rights Act, and all of those things. I say this because in some ways we can be depressed or we can be inspired by the fact that there's reasons why we're here, and today is about not necessarily looking in the rearview mirror, but recognizing where we've been so we can go forward. So we have a phenomenal panel today to talk about how this plays out in the high school, in the primary, in the school system. Because it's all of us, particularly those in corporations and many that you'll hear from later today, do phenomenal programs after school, phenomenal programs with our community-based organizations that are dramatically needed. The scale is going to happen. It must happen in school. So let me introduce our panelists. I'm going to introduce them all together, and then they're each going to give us a presentation on what they're doing. I'm going to ask very few questions, and then I'm going to turn it over to you. So we have the brave male on our panel, directly there, Dr. Donnie Hale from Florida International University. I'm not going to read his whole bio because it is in there for you, but I want you to have a sense of his story and where he has come from. I will tell you that Donnie, my husband, would be very impressed, and I would be remiss for not saying that way back when you were a football coach. And so you probably mentored a lot of young men in areas through sport and football. And what we have found is that often when our Black and Hispanic engineers actually volunteer through a sporting activity, sometimes young people see engineers as role models doing things that's different is actually incredibly inspiring. So that's why I think that's important, and thank you for having done that. He is currently the Florida International University Faculty Director of the Education Effect at Booker T. Washington Senior High School, which is a university community school partnership with Miami-Dade County Public Schools and the Lennar Foundation. He has worked in several aspects of education, and I know that he's going to go through a lot of what his story is and the phenomenal aspects of his program. He has been at the University of Oregon, Carroll University, San Joaquin Office of Education, and Boise State University. Donnie, thank you for being here. Next, with Donnie, we have Shirley McCall. Shirley has been an educator here in the District of Columbia Public Schools since 1974. Thank you so much for your service, Shirley. She has taught mathematics and computer science at the junior and senior high school levels and has served as a computer technology coordinator. If I read all of her awards, we would not have time for your questions. This woman is amazing and has won Educator Awards, National Association of Black Women in Construction, Visionary Leadership Awards, and on and on and on. And whenever I see a female scientist, engineer, that knows how to dress, I go back and I post her picture and I tell all our girls, you can be fashionably diva and an engineer scientist at the same time. Thank you very much, Shirley, for being with us. And then last but certainly not least, we have Erica Senega Mitchell from McKinley Technology High School. She has made significant contributions to the teaching profession as both a member of the biomedical community and a high school and university instructor. She's currently a STEM educator in the field of biotechnology and an avid supporter of STEM education at McKinley Technology High School in Northeast Washington, D.C. She, along with everyone on this panel, an incredible amount of awards, incredible amount of things that she has done. She did a lot of things in San Diego, closer to my hometown. University Unified School District Teacher of the Year, County Teacher of the Year, a 2011 California Teacher of the Year, and a 2011 Presidential Award for Excellence in Math and Science Teaching finalist. Please join me in a round of applause for our phenomenal panel. Thank you for being here. And what we're going to do is they're each going to talk a little bit about what's working, what their programs are doing. I'll ask probably one or two follow-up questions, depending on how much time we have, because we really want to give you more time for questions, but I do have to get us out of here on time. So we will do our best to make this interactive. I've taken most of my questions off because you are as brilliant, if not more brilliant, and Bet will have as more brilliant questions than I could have thought of. So we'll start with you, Donnie.
Thank you, Ms. Hudnell. So I'm excited to talk about what we're doing at FIU, but even more, I want to say thank you to Ms. Birch, because as I'm listening to you talk, I began to think about my 4-year-old daughter. And so she is curious, high-spirited, and full of energy. And while I love being an educator, as I think about how do we develop the future. And so at times it's easy to put a young lady in the box and to say, how do I manage her and keep her in control, as opposed to letting her be who she is and also providing opportunities. And so thank you for being up here to, as my family watches online, to be a role model for my young daughter. So thank you. And so I'm excited to talk about what we're doing at FIU, because it really comes down to how do you blur the lines. Because one part as a university is how to develop tomorrow's leaders and scientists, but even more, how do we do that in K-12? And so often you have two systems that sometimes do not communicate and don't always work together. But I think, and I know, and I'm excited about what FIU is doing, because we're blurring the lines. And it's called the Education Effect, and it's at its second site at Booker T. Washington High School. And what it is a public-private partnership. And it really leverages the vastness of a university to that of a community, but it talks about underserved, underprivileged,